The war had already lasted 6 years by the time Captain Jace Barrow was taken to the fighting pits. Humanity's colonies burned across the spiral arm, crushed under the relentless advance of the Threx Dominion, a warrior empire of towering, scaled beings bred for battle. On a barren moon orbiting the Dominion's capital world, prisoners were forced to fight for sport. The arenas were filled with roaring alien crowds, their cheers echoing through vast stone amphitheaters while warriors clashed with tooth, blade, and fire. It was not merely entertainment. For the Threx, combat was religion, and the pits were their temples. Jace had been captured during the fall of Outpost Aegis. Stripped of his weapons and armor, he was thrown into the pits along with other humans, most of whom died within minutes. The Dominion delighted in pitting their mightiest champions against the fragile mammals, proving again and again that resistance was hopeless. But Jace had not survived 6 years of war by being fragile. On the 21st day of his captivity, he faced his most dangerous opponent yet, Commander Kareth Valera, a Threx war hero and daughter of one of the High Chancellors. She was over 7 feet tall, her scales a deep crimson, her eyes burning with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. She carried a double-bladed staff forged of obsidian alloy, each strike fast enough to split stone. When she stepped into the arena, the crowd erupted. Kareth was not only feared, she was adored. And to them, today's fight would be nothing more than a spectacle, a powerful Threx woman humiliating a lesser human before tearing him apart. Kareth herself smirked as she sized Jace up. "So this is the warrior your kind whispers about," she said, her voice guttural yet strangely melodic. "The one who killed 4 of my brothers in the siege of Aegis?" Jace clenched his fists. He had no weapon but a battered iron sword taken from another prisoner's corpse. Compared to her elegant staff, it looked like a child's toy. "Don't worry," Kareth continued, circling him with predatory grace. "I'll make it quick." The crowd roared, the drums thundered, and the fight began. Middle. Kareth struck first. Her staff came down like a thunderbolt, shattering stone where Jace had been standing a second before. The force of the blow sent dust and shards flying, the crowd howling with approval. But Jace didn't meet her strength with strength. He darted, slid, and rolled, narrowly avoiding her deadly strikes. She was faster than anyone he'd ever fought, but not fast enough. Every time her staff crashed into the ground, Jace noted the rhythm of her movements, the brief moments when her stance opened just wide enough to exploit. "You run well," Kareth sneered, slashing her staff in a wide arc, "but running will not save you." Jace ducked, feeling the wind of the blade pass inches from his head. He thrust with his iron sword, but she blocked it effortlessly, sparks spraying as her staff twisted his blade aside. She laughed, a sound both mocking and exhilarated. To the crowd, it seemed like the human was barely surviving. To Kareth, it was a game. She was the predator, toying with prey before the inevitable kill. But then, something unexpected happened. Her staff came down in another overhead strike. Jace pivoted, grabbed the haft with both hands, and twisted with all his strength. Her eyes widened as her weapon jerked sideways, the momentum carrying her slightly off balance. It wasn't much. A heartbeat, nothing more. But in combat, a heartbeat was everything. Jace drove his knee into her midsection. The blow landed with a thud, forcing her back half a step. She snarled, more shocked than hurt. The crowd gasped. No human had ever managed to strike Commander Kareth before. "You dare," she began, but Jace didn't let her finish. He pressed forward, slashing with his sword in a flurry of quick strikes. She parried easily at first, but with each blow, her expression shifted. She was no longer smirking. Her eyes narrowed. Her movements sharpened. For the first time in her life, Kareth realized her opponent wasn't prey. He was a predator too. The fight stretched on. Sweat stung Jace's eyes, his muscles screaming with exhaustion, but he refused to yield. Every dodge, every counter, was fueled by years of battlefield instinct, honed against mechs, beasts, and warriors far stronger than himself. Kareth's attacks grew wilder, her pride goading her into recklessness. She had come into the pit expecting victory in seconds. But minutes passed. Then 10. And still the human fought on. Finally, Jace saw his chance. She lunged, thrusting her staff forward in a killing strike. He sidestepped, letting the staff glance off his shoulder, pain exploding down his arm. But he was already moving. He stepped inside her guard, his sword flashing up, not at her chest or head, but at the exposed joint of her wrist. The blade bit deep. Kareth cried out, her staff clattering to the ground. The crowd fell into stunned silence. Jace held his sword at her throat. His breath came ragged, his body trembling, but his eyes burned with unyielding defiance. "Looks like you were wrong," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "We humans don't break so easily." For several heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then Kareth did something no one expected. She laughed. Not the cruel, mocking laugh from before, but something raw, alive, filled with exhilaration. "You fight like no creature I have ever seen," she said, blood dripping from her wrist. "You should be dead 100 times over, yet you stand." She rose slowly, never breaking eye contact. "Perhaps I misjudged your kind." Ending. The crowd roared for blood, chanting Kareth's name, demanding she finish the human. But she raised her uninjured hand for silence. "No," she declared, her voice booming across the arena. "This human has earned victory." The Threx audience fell into uproar, some outraged, others awestruck. Never before had one of their champions acknowledged a human as anything more than prey. Jace staggered, unsure if he'd won or merely delayed his death. But Kareth stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You've shown me something I did not believe possible," she said. "Strength not of body, but of spirit. That is why your kind resists us, isn't it? Not because you are stronger, but because you refuse to yield." Jace met her gaze, seeing not mockery now, but respect. Perhaps even admiration. "What happens now?" he asked. Kareth tilted her head, her crimson scales glistening in the harsh arena light. "Now, I will fight for you." The declaration stunned him. But true to her word, Kareth defied the Dominion. She demanded Jace's release, claiming his survival was proof of divine favor. Her reputation was so great, her voice so influential, that the chancellors were forced to relent, if only to avoid civil unrest. Over the following months, whispers spread across the empire. Of the human who stood against their greatest warrior. Of the Threx woman who admitted defeat and chose respect over pride. Slowly, others began to question the Dominion's narrative of human weakness. And so, the war shifted. Jace returned to his people not just as a survivor, but as a symbol. And Kareth Valera, once his enemy, became his unlikely ally. Together, they led missions that would eventually turn the tide of the conflict. Years later, when historians asked Kareth why she had spared him, she always answered the same.